So, Jill, I love the way you frame what your practice does and what your expertise is, because it seems to me that you really understand how different people are and how they respond to stress differently and how they burn out differently. And you, as a coach, you've worked with a lot of different people over the years. Uh, I'd like to know two things. Number one, maybe you have a heartwarming story that you can share, an example. You don't need to tell names or anything like that. But secondly, how is it that you identify the person and how you should work with them and how close they are to burnout and how can you help them to get past that?
Yeah, so what I believe is important is to talk about the cost of burnout first, if that's okay. Uh,
Absolutely.
Burnout, I personally have experienced and witnessed that there's like this pre-burnout where you're starting to recognize, oh, maybe I should pause. Maybe my body's telling me I should pause. You feel this anxiousness or this pressure, and you're noticing. That to me is this pre-burnout where I can keep going. Let's see, I'm going to push through. Well, then there gets this place where you're pushing and you feel like you don't have a choice but to keep pushing. And the pressure is coming from outside of you and it's coming from inside of you to keep going. Maybe you're overthinking. Maybe you're recognizing that it's harder to make decisions. You're less clear. You're getting less sleep. You're exhausted. You're not as available for the relationships that are most important to you. And then there's this place where we get to where you've hit a wall, or for some it may feel, very different, and you can't continue. Maybe that's because you're physically, something's come up with your health that has forced you to stop what you're doing. Mentally, emotionally, where you have to you can't continue, and you have to take a break. And maybe this is something you've experienced or others that you know have experienced, but I would be surprised if you don't know someone who has experienced burnout at any one of these phases. And then when we do, I believe there's one last part, is this after. And personally, I've gone through this and healed from burnout. And I've also supported people through it and have had many conversations. And then it takes a good year or more to start to feel like yourself again. And so my work, I believe, is so important to connect with people at any one of those phases because I want to meet you where you are so that you can live the life that you want and that you deserve.
I agree. I feel like a lot of people don't understand that that's what they're going through or they're headed for. And I'd love to know a little bit more about your story, how you realized that you were burnout and that you now not only are an expert at helping people to do this, but you've received some of this expertise through your own experience. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I I didn't realize that I've been until my most recent experience with burnout that this has become a pattern for me.
Mm.
And so that's something that I believe by going through my own experiences and having them in different situations, and I'll explain what those situations are, is that I've recognized that this is an internal identity pattern that I continue to show up, I continue to push, I continue to prove, or I used to, my worth, my value. And it happened, I would say, most recently, I've recognized it happened when I was back in high school, when I was playing sports. And I was just so exhausted and I lost my passion for the sport that had been my identity, that had been so important to me, so much fun, my community. And when I lost the passion and I could not continue, it's like there's no fun in it anymore. I had to figure out who I was without it. And so
Yeah, because
then,
that was a huge part of your life at that
yeah,
point. I mean, you probably
yes.
spent hours a week,
Oh,
uh, and then it you probably just pushed it a little bit too far,
mm,
and I mean, not knowing.
yeah, not knowing. And it's only recently where I realized this pattern showed up much earlier in my life than I realized. And so then fast forward a bit from there, I was a stay-at-home mom, a primary caregiver for our kids, and I was trying to do more than because being at home in my mind wasn't enough. So I was trying to do other things. I was building other businesses. I was just pushing and pushing. And yet I would find myself in my kitchen just feeling like I was on the verge of collapse. And I wanted to give everything to everyone all the time, to my partner, to our kids. And I never took care of myself. I just felt like this was the way I had to do it. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know what help even looked like if I was to ask. And I was paying the cost. My family was experiencing the cost because I was less present. Our kids were experiencing the cost. These young kids who were growing up with a mom who was disconnected from herself, and then through that, unable to fully be present in their lives. So I would say that parental burnout, and I didn't even know that was a thing,
Mm.
right? And so then fast forward from that, then I co-founded and co-directed a nonprofit for just over a decade. And in the last few years of that, I went from this moment of, can you believe I get to do this work? Can you believe like this was the best fit, the most exciting. It's so much passion and excitement for my work to, I don't think I can continue this. This is too much. That same exhaustion. I don't know. I was carrying so much weight, so much responsibility to the point that one day this was a red flag, but I did not realize it at the time. I had asked my colleagues, what is my role? Because some things had shifted in the organization and I needed some clarity around my role. I was a bit lost. And they said, well, your job is to be the mortar. And at the time, I was like, wow, my job is to be the mortar. I'm so important. I get to do everything. Well, now I know. And you're laughing. I can see you smiling because you're like, well, of course, like you're over carrying everything. You're trying to, and if you're in nonprofit leadership, you understand, and in business leadership, you understand you're trying to wear so many different hats and take on so many different roles. And at the same time, I was still a mom. I was still caring for our children. I was still navigating. I was still a spouse. I was still a friend. And if I'm over carrying in my business, in my life, I'm over carrying actually, for me at least, in all aspects of my life. And so I started to realize when that nonprofit actually ended up needing to close through a number of different circumstances, I believe that part of those circumstances were connected to my leadership. Not all of it, of course, but that took some learning too, is that when something fails, we start to if you're the person who I believe may be prone to overcarrying, you start to over blame yourself. And then you carry the blame and the guilt and the shame as well with that. And so then fast forward a little bit there, I now moved into my coaching business and I started to have physical responses. I had never had a physical response before, but I started to have pain in my body. And this was the first time I paused. This was the first time I listened and said, Jill, you can't do this to yourself again. You've had these experiences in your life for a reason, and now you get to do it differently. And so I had this opportunity to make a decision to let go, to relax, to allow myself to release the pressure that I was putting on myself. And my body was telling me this is too much. And as soon as I let go of that pressure, as soon as I started to shift and do things differently, the pain went away too. And different opportunities started opening up in my business and in my life in ways that were beautiful. And so I have these experiences, and I believe it's my job to give back to others who are recognizing themselves in these stories, in the stories that I'm telling or that I'm sharing. and to say, you don't have to live this way. You don't. You get to decide. And I'm someone who is a coach who meets you where you are. And it's really, really important to me.
Well, it sounds like you've had a very, personal experience with it. When you have a client and they're going through what they probably don't even recognize it as burnout, what can, how do you start with them? How do you help them to realize that this is a problem that can be solved? That once they have this solved, then their life is going to be, a lot more smooth. And not only probably in that area, but in all areas of their life. Where do you get started with them? Because I know that they're probably quite frustrated by the time they come to you.
Yes, yes, because sometimes we don't seek help until after we've been feeling the effects of whatever's going on in our life. And so this is a great question. For me, in the work that I do, it starts with nervous system support and helping people come back to themselves. If you consider, if you're familiar with grounding, with reconnecting with your body, like when I think of burnout and overwhelm and pressure, we have all this energy outside of us. It's all going to everything outside of us. And so the work is to start to bring it back to ourselves, to say, you're worthy of support. You're worthy of care and compassion and self-compassion and self-love. And so for me, it always starts with coming back to the person and their own value and their own worth. And sometimes that looks like we're going to be in quiet meditation for a little bit. We're going to settle because with so many of us who have experienced overwhelm and burnout, we don't know that rest is safe. And so within our coaching, I always am starting in really supporting safety within the coaching container, but then within the person themselves.
Well, and you frame your work as working with leadership, and I feel like almost everybody has some sort of a leadership role in their life, whether it's, leading the family, whether it is at work, or, really just anything. You are sometimes the follower and sometimes the leader. And I know from a leadership standpoint, a lot of times people are like, I've got this, and I don't need help. And yet they see the physical, they see not only the mental anguish and emotional, but the physical things happening. Like all of a sudden now they're, sick where they used to not be. And because the body, like what you were saying, the body will tell us when we've gone too far. And sometimes people don't want to recognize that because, ooh, I got to drive and get that, get more and more successful or whatever. So how how do you give permission to these people that have that mentality of I got to drive, that it's okay, that they can slow down, or they can treat themselves, or they have to treat themselves, or they're going to completely lose everything.
Mm. The key is that I'm not the one giving them permission.
Mm.
My work with my clients is for them to learn that they can give themselves permission, that they can take back their power, and to recognize all the ways that they are giving it away on a regular basis to having other people tell them when they're good enough. That's not so. We know that when, like you said, we're leaders of families, we're leaders of companies, we're leaders of businesses, we're leaders in our community, right? There's all different ways to identify leadership. And what I've learned and I see again and again is that when leaders, in this case, when they get the support they need, when they just, I don't know, I'm starting to sit up, more like when you feel this confidence and this self-belief that the people and the teams and the family members, they all start to heal in unique ways and interesting ways, like these ripples. And so The permission comes from you. Do you want your relationships to improve outside of you? Do you want yourself to be able to lead your company or your business in a way that you feel really proud of? Do you want to be able to model for your team members what healthy leadership looks like and how to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to make mistakes and grow and learn from them, right? Those are the same things we want for our children and our grandchildren if you have them, right? These are the things, this is the legacy that we're creating. And it starts with giving ourselves permission. So I don't work with anyone who's not ready to give themselves that permission. You have to
Well, I'm
decide.
glad. Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the ripple effect because that's so real. How we show up in our lives is going to emanate, and people are going to perceive us as, you know, either a person who's completely washed out or, tired and not able to serve, or somebody who is vibrant and takes care of themselves enough to be able to spread out. I kind of look at it like this. If you had a pitcher of water and you've filled it up, okay, this is like all the education, this is your spirit or whatever. But what I want to be able to do is keep filling. Like if I had a hose going into a pitcher of water, it doesn't matter if it spills over. It's got to spill over because that spillover is going to go into our children, into our husbands, or our family members, or our team members. That spillover is what we want. We want to be completely full ourselves so that the spillover can happen to other people. And you can't do that if you're an empty pitcher,
Mm-mm,
right?
you
So
can't.
if someone is listening to you today and they're recognizing themselves in your story or any of the other, I think actually I wanted to get one more story out of you. Do you have
Okay, let's do it.
a story about a client?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because then we're going to go and we're going to chat a little bit about, how do you get in touch with Jill and how, she might help you. But yes, please share that story with us.
Mm. I actually have two different,
Okay,
if they're
perfect.
right. One is someone who is in the midst of doing the work, and I want to share the power of coaching and having someone who can reflect back to you. So, one of my clients is a high level executive and was being brought into a very pressure specific kind of put out the fires type project within their corporation and was in a position where they were working with someone that they'd respected over the years, but also had, like bumped heads as well. But they needed to work really well together in order to have the success for this project. And so my client, we met, and it was this doesn't have to take long. I guess that's why I want to share this story specifically. Within 15 minutes, we had this conversation and this coaching session, which I don't actually remember the details. I mean, I remember being available. I remember reflecting. I remember helping around shifting mindset and just being present with the person and what they were navigating and helping them think about it in a different way. This relationship that they were going into, this project that they were about to continue and, be an important part of leading. And what's most important about this story is that months later, my client shared with me that the partner that they would bump heads with said, "Gosh, wow, we're really working so well together. I don't know what's changed." And my client said, "I did. I
Yeah.
changed." And I was able to do that in a 15-minute session. And
That's
because of,
amazing because
yes,
of the right questions that you answered
hmm
for her.
yeah. And so my client has said that that led to hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings for the company
Mhm.
because my client chose to ask the questions, chose to say, I want this to be different. And I know that it's my responsibility to do something about that. They could. What happens often is that people look outside of them for the solutions. Well, that person needs to change, or that situation needs to be different, or that needs to happen differently. But what my client did, which I love, and that's what I support and foster in my work, is that they looked at themselves and how they could show up differently.
Well, that's that humility coming in, that she was willing to, yeah, really look at herself and identify what can I do differently. And I love that story because it sounds like you're so, I mean, I know from knowing you, Jill, and this is why we chose you as one of the elite coaches for Success Magnet. I know that you are terrifically empathetic and that it feels like you're almost a conduit to something that's happening spiritually in order to help these people. It's not like, oh, let's go by the book and here's step one, step two, step three. No, everybody's individual. And see, this is where you are the gift that you come in and you have this gift to give, please unwrap it because uh, honestly, you're not going to get the goods until you unwrap the package.
Yeah.
And this is Jill. She's presenting, this big gift of being able to, help yourself with burnout and help yourself to interact better with the teammates and so forth. So there's another story you said. You're teasing us with a secondary story here.
There is another story. So that this first story was about someone who's actively working and in a position of pressure and authority. The second story of someone who has been healing from burnout. And I mentioned earlier that I believe from my own experience and from people I've coached, but also from people I've connected with who have left leadership roles out of what felt like necessity, is that it takes a good year or year and a half to recover.
Mm.
And I have been working with this client who was a business owner. She she stopped, she closed her business, and she's been healing ever since. And it's been hard for her to take action on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of like, what did I do wrong? How did I fail? Shame, guilt, all of this. So just almost the year mark, which was really fascinating. I was coaching her in a session, and she is recognizing through the work we've recognized, we gain awareness, we recognize our patterns. My goal is to always offer education and support through the experience of coaching so that when we're not together, people are still recognizing and having awareness and patterns and being able to support themselves. And so we were in the session, and all of a sudden, we were talking, and she paused. I mean, just completely paused. She closed her eyes, and then she said, I tried to reach for guilt and shame just then, and it didn't stick.
Teflon. You allowed her to, gave her permission to let that slip away whenever it presents itself.
Yeah. And
That
that
that's huge. So
is,
she's probably not waking up with a feeling of dread anymore. Her life, I mean, times in my life when I've been in that situation, the waking up with the feeling of dread, oh my goodness, how am I going to deal with this day? So she has probably gotten over that, or she's getting over that, and
she
now
is.
she
And
has.
yeah, I mean, we go up and down. I mean, that's the thing that we all have to realize is life isn't all just up, up, up. I mean, it's up and down. But when you can catch yourself going for an old pattern or an old belief or an old story and say, wait, that doesn't have the power it used to, you
Mhm.
know that you can continue living your life and it's just going to get better and better from there. And so that's that rewiring. But it takes time, it takes safety within ourselves, and it takes releasing all the limiting beliefs and all the energy. I mean, you get into the spiritual, you mentioned this conduit is working together with our energy to release what's no longer serving us. And and that's what she's doing. She's feeling safety within herself to let go more and more.
I love that moment and her epiphany, like, oh wow,
Hmm.
I just did it myself. Like I can
Yes.
literally let go of those things myself and not let them affect me. That
Hmm.
is huge. And you did that. You did that, Jill. Because it obviously she needed to have the humility to give you permission to assist her and help her. But you did that. You presented the way and she grasped onto it and she is healing herself right now. So that is so, so beautiful. I'm certain that there are people listening to this that can relate to what you've been saying. And I want to wholeheartedly endorse you as a coach at this point because I know that you affect other people's lives, you change people's lives. And I want to thank you so much for investing the time today, because I know you're super busy, investing your time with us today to explain your practice. How do people get in touch with you? And what does that look like? I know that we're going to offer like a 15-minute free consultation for anybody that listens to this. But what does that look like when they reach out to you?
Yes, I would direct you first to jillvyn.com. You're going to be able to learn more about me, what I'm offering, and what you just said is the most important first step. If you're even having an inkling that, gosh, something really resonates with me, trust that. Trust that and schedule a call because to me, the work is for us to find, is this a good fit? My job as a coach in that 15-minute call is to help you discover and with us, does it make sense to take the next step together? Because I don't believe that every person is meant to work with every coach, that there is a good fit and we'll know it within a very short bit of time together. And I look forward to those types of calls to discover and explore how I can support you on your journey.
Well, Jill, we love you. And of course, I'm so excited to be able to offer you to the world here. Honestly, as a success
Yeah.
magnet coach, we're so proud to be aligned with you. And thank you for changing lives. And we appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.